Hi guys, Pingao here. Welcome to episode 2 of my new city, New Falmouth. Now in today's episode we are doing a bit of everything. Quite a large build this week. There's a lot of recording I did and a lot of building that I did, and I've had to edit this down significantly to get this into a viewable 20-minute episode, but I have managed it. But there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, so do bear with me because there'll be quite a lot of different things happening in this episode, and some of the stuff I just didn't have enough time to put in. But hopefully with the cinematics and things you can see the sort of level of detail that I'm going for with this build, with this city. I'm trying to optimize it as much as I can within realms of reason, but it's tricky when you're a bit of a kind of perfectionist, I guess, and I end up doing stuff probably to a level that I shouldn't really be doing because I get carried away with the detail, which is my main downfall. But you know, it's what we do, and I'm quite pleased at the moment with how the city's looking. And this area is pretty much, or certainly this part of the riverfront is pretty much done now, which is cool. It's quite a big area as well, but it is a fairly nondescript sort of industrial area, which is what I'm focusing on at this stage rather than the city itself. So this is a kind of a little river or a little rainwater gully or something I did actually in my previous city. You may remember, if anybody's there that looked at my previous series, Santa Capricia. One of the episodes I concentrated on these kind of like rainwater storm gullies, which was going to be something that would run through the city. In this instance, it's not really a storm drain as such, it's more of a kind of stream that just empties out into a kind of estuary there, into the main river. But it just looks quite cool, I think, and it's a detail that I did before, so I thought I'd try and put it into New Falmouth as well, and obviously just covering the banks with some ploppable grass and some plants and trees and things. Now, what we're doing here is we are focusing more on the main kind of area to the side of this original oil depot that I did last week, and this will be a kind of low density industrial area, sort of little kind of container yards and sort of few warehouses and a lot of just abandoned lots, I guess, you know, areas that probably would have originally had factories and stores and warehouses on, but now they're just left over as kind of wasteland. And what I'm doing a lot of in this build particularly is putting decals on. You can see here I've got a lot of decals going in, and because you end up with the big concrete areas, so you have to try and break those up somehow, and decals obviously are the way to go with those. And these buildings here is pretty much the only buildings I'm putting on this entire area, and as I say, it's mainly just because this area is kind of a pretty low density industry, few little kind of stores and things, a few little warehouses, but nothing of any real note. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this part of the city to have a specific kind of atmosphere about it, to be an area that was once a thriving kind of commercial and industrial area. Now it's more of kind of just an abandoned and neglected part of the city, but it is nevertheless pretty central. I mean, on the opposite side of the river to where this is will probably be certainly the start of the downtown area and the harbour itself. So it is a pretty good location, and possibly one day this might become a sort of new regenerated area of the city. But at this stage it is still in its kind of semi-abandoned kind of semi-abandoned appearance. But I quite enjoy doing this sort of work with these kind of dirty, grimy areas and sort of abandoned lots and things, because this all adds to the character of the city. And it's not a city that's going to be particularly shiny and new. It's going to be, it's going to have a bit of history to it. I'm still thinking this is New England way, possibly Maine or somewhere around there. So it will have more history than, say, if it was a West Coast city, which would be more sort of, I guess, 20th century. This is probably 200 or 300 years old. So there'll be sort of older Victorian houses and things like that when they get to that stage, as well as lots of old sort of Victorian factories and things. And there's a lot of assets on the workshop which I want to use, lots of old sort of Victorian warehouses and power plants and things like that. So I think it will fit quite well with this city to use some of those assets. So what we're doing here is planning some little props and things in. I'm using the PO mod for a lot of this work, although at this stage I'm just going for the good old-fashioned ploppable props. I can actually get the words out. Now this here is a kind of a bit of a landmark actually for the build. This is an old oil storage tank which has now been emptied, obviously, and it's used as a kind of just an area to store stuff. So I thought if I convert it into a PO first of all, editable object, and then I can edit the mesh and obviously put some decals in, and you'll see in a minute, put some props, plants and things like that. So it sort of worked quite well, but it's a little bit different from the usual sort of build. And yeah, become a little bit of a kind of landmark for this area. You could almost imagine one day maybe that would be used as a kind of a new sort of, maybe some architect will come along and convert that into a new sort of office complex or something around the old drum, around the old oil tank, which is something you do see in cities. Now this is another oil storage depot, and so this one is sort of on the, well, it's a bit further along the river there. You can see how it relates to the other area I've already built. And this oil storage depot is more of a kind of working depot. So this has got all the sort of gubbings that you get along with these sort of locations, all the pipes and so forth. Pretty much went for PO on all of these, just so I could edit the pipes and scale them up and do everything I need to do with them. Yeah, so just a question of putting all the pipes in. So there's a lot of work here involved. I'm not going to talk too much over this because I think it sort of it speaks for itself really. But yeah, it's something I quite enjoyed doing. I got a bit carried away, as I mentioned, but it all adds to the detail of the city. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of music here, and you can watch me go crazy with pipes. So some of these other assets, these are bigger assets, and you'll see the scale is a bit off with these. So they have to be converted PO, and then obviously then you can change the scale and reduce them down and so forth. Just using this metric kind of rule, I guess, just to work out the height or get it approximately correct for the height. Usually I use a door, something like that, just to get the scale. As long as it looks about right, it doesn't need to be absolutely accurate, but as long as it looks about right, then that's fine. And the other thing you'll see me do quite a bit is change the colour on these some of these assets as well, particularly the pipes. I'm going to be changing the colour a lot, just so things match in a little bit better, and so it blends a little bit more. It doesn't sort of stand out. Just trying to get everything to look a little bit like it's all there, designed at the same time, rather than just different bits planted in. But yeah, I mean, all these little details are quite fun to do. part of the build, last part of the episode really is this little pier or jetty, kind of like oil transfer pier that barges and things dock at, and you can unload the oil. It gets pumped from the depot onto tankers and then taken off. It's not a huge port or anything, it's more like just little local barges and things that pull up and dock against these jetties. So it's not like a huge container port or anything like that. But, you know, nevertheless, still needs to have the detail. It still needs to look like it kind of functions, even if it doesn't. And again, I'm using some little assets here. I think that was a freeway sign, freeway structure on for signs or something. I've converted into a PO again, and then just played with the mesh a bit and put it in the water and so forth. So those parts have become the structure of the jetty. And then it's just a question of adding all the details in. So I put the pipes across the top, put some sort of like catwalks onto the top of those sort of jetty sections, and also add in things like railings and stuff, which I'm not really going to show here because it's, you know, there's so much of it. But you will see that in the cinematics very, very shortly. So it brings us pretty much to the end of this episode. I hope that you have been enthralled by the progress of the city so far. I can't say it's particularly looking like a proper city at this stage, more like a kind of industrial facility, which, as I say, is often the way I go with these cities. But nevertheless, it's getting there gradually, and I'm quite happy with how it looks so far. Next episode, I'm hoping to cross the river. I think I might be working on the main sort of bridge across the river, and possibly even starting the kind of eastern side where the downtown is, certainly where the harbour is. So look forward to that. But until then, do subscribe to the channel. As always, if you haven't already done so, please do, and do hit the like button if you've enjoyed the video. So I bid you farewell, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.